Hi, I'm writing my critical thinking paper on income inequality. This is a tremendously complex issue and would require significant systematic changes in policy and governance in order to fully address. But for the purposes of this project, I decided to focus on ideas that create moderate reductions in income inequality right now. One such proposal is President Obama's proposed expansion of the Earned Income Tax Credit. The proposal the president offers seeks to make the credit larger for childless workers and includes making permanent the married couple and multiple child credits that were enacted in 2009. Those credits are estimated to have lifted 16 million families with 30 million children out of poverty since they were enacted. So the president wants to make them permanent. As stated on the White House's website, the president proposes to increase the credit for childless workers to $1,000. This is an increase from the current $503. The president also seeks to increase the maximum income one can make and still receive the benefit. This is known as the phase-out. The current phase-out is $14,820, and for reference, the poverty line for a single childless worker is $11,770. The president's proposal increases this phase-out to $18,000, which is about 150% of the poverty line. The current Earned Income Tax Credit also restricts eligibility to include only workers aged 25 to 65. The president's proposal would like to change these limits to 21 to 67. It's estimated that these changes would lift another 13.5 million people out of poverty. Now, while I was doing my research, I was able to find ample reporting on the effects of the Earned Income Tax Credit and analysis of the potential effect of the president's proposal. The Center on Budget and Public Policy points out that this proposal would reduce poverty rates for childless workers because of a reduction in tax burden. Findings by the Brookings Institute and affirmed by the Center on Budget and Public Policy point toward findings indicating that children living in families eligible for the credit do better in school or more likely to attend college, which eventually leads to overall lifetime income increases. So this program not only has immediate benefits, but also acts as a long-term income inequality reducer. The reduction in age eligibility provides young populations who are low workforce participators more incentive to work, which will lead to more opportunity for them down the road. And the age increase is in line with the new age requirement for full Social Security. A report by the Cato Institute argues against the Earned Income Tax Credit. In their analysis, they come to the conclusion that it should be completely eliminated. They argue that the negative effects of the tax credit outweigh any positive effects gained by those receiving the credit. There's an increased tax burden on those not eligible for the credit. For those who are eligible, they argue that they will see a decreased hours in their work, decreased hours available to work as the labor force participation increases, which the Cato Institute argues hurts low-wage workers further by suppressing wage growth as the pool of available labor is broadened. Lastly, they argue that the program is plagued by fraud. Beyond the think tanks, there is some bipartisan support for this proposal, but the sticking points eventually come down to how are we going to pay for the expansion. The president's proposal suggests closing some of the high-income loopholes that allow high earners to avoid tax, while Paul Ryan proposes that the expansion be paid for by cutting other social safety net programs like the Social Service Block Grant and the Fresh Fruits and Vegetables program. The arguments against the Earned Income Tax Credit are not compelling in comparison to the positives gained, as I point out in my paper. If the current Earned Income Tax Credit has this much impact on reducing income inequality, the president's proposal could change millions of lives for the better, also strengthen our economy, and ultimately our country.